China is vowing retaliation after President Trump signed legislation sanctioning officials and banks earlier this week. He also signed an executive order ending Hong Kong's preferential trade status. The U.S. made the change after Beijing imposed a controversial new national security law on Hong Kong. It includes criminal penalties for what China's government calls secession, subversion, terrorist activities, and collusion with foreign or external forces to endanger national security. Beijing says the legislation will make the city safer, but critics argue it's an ill-concealed effort to curb freedoms previously enjoyed by the residents of Hong Kong. To talk more about how it's impacting life in the city, we want to bring in Mary Hui. She's a reporter at Quartz, and she's been following the latest developments from Hong Kong. Mary, it's good to have you. It's been just over 2 weeks since China implemented this national security law. How are the people in Hong Kong reacting to the implementation of the legislation, given that there's also been a recent uptick in infections of COVID-19?
Yeah. There's certainly a mix of emotions, I think. The very first day after the national security law was signed into effect, people did take to the streets to protest as much as they could, despite a heavy police presence. But in the weeks since, what we've seen is an increasing amount of control over all aspects of life in Hong Kong. Protest slogans have been banned. The education minister has said that a protest anthem that has been kind of at the center of the protest movement is to be banned from schools because it is subversive in intent. And at the same time, a lot of these so-called Lenin walls, which are these colorful walls that pro-protest establishments and businesses put up in their shops, these colorful displays of pro-protest, pro-democracy, photos and messages, those have all been scrubbed and taken down because the government has insinuated that those may be in breach of the national security law as well. So overall, what we're seeing is this consolidation of control under the auspices of this national security law. And people are still right now, first of all, have a lot of questions about how the law will be enforced. And second of all, where the lines actually are to be drawn, because as you said earlier, this law is very vaguely written and the crimes are very vaguely defined.
So we mentioned President Trump's move to end Hong Kong's special status. I wonder what the impact of that will be, though, on the people who live in Hong Kong.
I think we'll have to see exactly how those effects will play out, but certainly there will be huge financial and economic and business ramifications, given that Hong Kong has for years enjoyed these special preferential treatments, such that it can, for example, enter into its own trade agreements separate from China. It's exempt from tariffs and the like. And so going forward, I think we'll have to see what the economic impact of that will be on the average Hong Konger. But what we have to remember is also that this revocation of Hong Kong special status is something that protesters have actually been calling for as part of their broader strategy of what we call lam tao in Cantonese, which can broadly be translated to if we burn, you burn with us as well. It's this idea that if Hong Kong is to suffer under China's rule, then China should be made to suffer too. And revoking the special status is what protesters see as one way to make Beijing pay for what they're doing in Hong Kong.
China has established a national security office in Hong Kong. What is that? How significant is it? And what is the intention? What are they overseeing?
Well, it's an unprecedented development in that, first of all, we now have the official deployment of national security, state security agents from China operating officially in Hong Kong, out in the open. And then second of all, they now have taken over as their temporary offices a large hotel building right in the middle of Hong Kong, not in the heart of the business district, but in a more residential area overlooking a large park where each year the Tiananmen Vigil has been held and where a lot of pro-democracy protests start. So I think that in itself sends a very strong message that China's state security agents are watching very, very closely for any kind of activity that opposes the state and the Communist Party.
Just to pivot a little bit, Mary, before we let you go, we've been talking about the coronavirus obviously all morning long. What is the situation in Hong Kong in regards to the coronavirus?
Over this past week, we've seen essentially Hong Kong's first sustained community outbreak. Since January, Hong Kong really has fared very, very well. But the nature of the challenge right now is different in that in the past months, what Hong Kong has mostly been dealing with have been imported cases. First in January, then in March, when a lot of overseas Hong Kongers came back to Hong Kong. But what's different now is that there is a community outbreak, a sustained community outbreak, and many of the cases right now, officials have not been able to trace the exact source of. So restrictions have been stepped up again. It's part of the suppress and lift tactic that Hong Kong's scientists and the government have been advocating. And so that's what we're keeping an eye on, is whether the reproductive number can be brought down quickly.
All right, Mary Hui, thank you so much.
Thank you.